right, welcome to the Young Turks, guys. Jake Ugranic Kasparian with you guys. It's a lovely Thursday evening-ish across the country.
I'm so excited about the show today.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Huh,
yes.
I like your excitement. Why? What's going on?
Look, we're bad people. Because maybe it's not right to talk about Lawrence O'Donnell having a meltdown on one night during the filming of his show. But it's just so good to watch. And, you know, no judgment, no hate, no nothing. I just want to talk about it.
We're just going to watch it. There's no judgment. Okay, yeah. Hashtag no judgment. Okay, so that's a little bit later in the program. Also, in the second hour, the Missouri protests, the St. Louis protests, you know, I can't wait to jump in on it, and I think that it's taking a very interesting turn. And I also want to let you guys know that one of the people leading the protest is a Just Democrat. So it's kind of an interesting angle on that I want to discuss. But I haven't been on the show in a couple of days, so I'm ready to go on every one of these topics. So let's have at it, Hoss.
All right, let's do it. Let's also turn on the monitor because I need it for graphics. Just get that out of the way.
Okay.
All right. The healthcare debate among senators rages on, and of course, Republicans are trying to rush a vote for a replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act before the procedural instructions run out of time, and all of a sudden they will have to do more than just get a simple majority in the Senate in order to pass this replacement proposal. Now, Mike Pence has chimed in on this debate, and recently he was on Fox and Friends talking about some of the potential flaws in the proposal and what they might do to fix it. Take a look.
What do you say when governors say, like Governor Christie, I'm getting $4 billion less, I'm not for this?
Well, it's absolutely true to say the Graham-Cassidy bill over time levels out on a per person basis the way we distribute money on health care, which I think resonates with most Americans, that we will ultimately get to a place where the resources that are available to states are based on a per individual basis. And we'll get to that. But there is time in the days ahead and in future budgets to address those issues as they arrive.
Okay, so I just want to clarify something, and it's something that we talked about on the show yesterday, but just to reiterate, there are some states under the Affordable Care Act that receive more money than other states. And this is, of course, federal money in order to help subsidize health insurance. Now, the reason why some states received much more money is because they agreed to play ball with the Affordable Care Act, meaning they agreed to expand Medicare in their states. There are other states, red states in particular, who did not care about the best interests of their constituents, refused to take that money because they refused to take advantage of the positive components of the Affordable Care Act. And so I just want to make that clear because Republicans are spinning that and making it seem as though, oh, the liberal states are getting all this money while the red states are getting screwed over by the Affordable Care Act. That was the decision by the lawmakers in those states.
Yeah, they could have gotten the money as well. All they had to do was ask for it, and it was so that their voters, their constituents could actually have better health care. They said, no, we don't want our citizens to have better health care. So even though it's money we can take, we're not gonna take it, and we're gonna deny our own citizens. So that was their decision. Now on this Pence video, I'm greatly amused by one thing he said. Now, so first he said, look, this levels out on a per person basis. Okay, in other words, yes, we're cutting the funds. Okay, it's a funny, politically correct way to say we're cutting funding. But the amusing part was he followed that up by saying, I think this really resonates with the American people. Which, the leveling out per person, nobody knows what that means. What do you mean that it resonates with the American people? It doesn't resonate with anybody. You're just saying, yeah, oh man, people are gonna love it when we cut their health care. Well, if you say so, big guy.
Let me jump in on that because keep in mind that they tried to do this without getting any attention, right? They wanted to jam it through a vote. They didn't want Americans to have an opportunity to reflect on it or analyze it. They don't even want the Congressional Budget Office to have the time to analyze it and see whether or not people are going to lose health insurance coverage through this proposal, which by the way, they will, which is why they're trying to rush it through a vote. So they don't care or even consider how Americans feel about it. They don't even want to give them an opportunity to think about it.
Are you kidding me? If it was popular, they'd be parading it up and down the street. They'd take their time. They'd Say, look at what the CBO score is. We're so proud of it. They do all those things. They're not trying to do any of that. They're trying to sneak it in because they know it's not popular. A similar version of this bill when it was introduced earlier, you know what popularity it had in America? 17%. That is disastrously low. You know what that's going to lead to? A leveling out per politician on the Republican side. In other words, your ratings are going to go way down and you know it. So lying about how it resonates with the American people is hilarious.
Yes. All right. So there's another portion of that interview that Pence had with Fox and Friends that I loved. Senators have been dodging the question in regard to whether or not people will get coverage if they have a pre-existing condition. Pence is no exception when it comes to the dodging. Take a look.
Folks like Jimmy Kimmel, they're worried about the pre-existing condition thing because this will be up to the governors to decide how the money's dispersed, who gets coverage. Every state will determine what's best for their folks. But with that, can you guarantee that these governors will make sure pre-existing conditions are covered?
Thomas Jefferson said, government that governs least governs best. I mean, the question that people ought to ask is, who do you think will be more responsive to the health care needs in your community? Your governor in your state legislature or a congressman and a president in a far-off nation's capital?
Yeah, no one asked you a philosophical question about the role of government. We just want to know whether or not people with pre-existing conditions will get coverage. Now,
let's be just absolutely clear. You guys heard that for yourself. That means no, you will not be covered if you have a pre-existing condition. Because she asked a very clear question, to her credit, on Fox and Friends, okay? And he did not answer the question. Instead, he said, well, we're gonna leave it up to the states because that's what Thomas Jefferson would want. In other words, yes, your state can allow for insurance that takes away protections for people with pre-existing conditions. So that is absolutely clear. That actually proves Jimmy Kimmel's point that Louisiana senator was in fact lying. This does not cover pre-existing conditions. Donald Trump, when he says it does, of course, is telling his billionth lie in a row. And you could tell because the vice president just told you in a point blank question, is pre-existing conditions guaranteed to be covered? And he said, no, it's gonna be up to the states like Jefferson would want. There it is.
Right, so look, it's clear that they are not doing anything that's going to benefit us. There's a reason why they don't want the public to reflect on it and analyze it. There's a reason why they don't want to give the CBO an opportunity to do it. There's a reason why they're rushing this so they can pass it with a simple majority rather than having a larger portion of the Senate agree on it. And it's just pathetic. And the reason why this story is getting attention is because people are more aware of what's going on in politics today, and because people like Jimmy Kimmel continue to harp on this issue with good reason, okay? So
finally, I'm amused by the idea of Republicans quoting giant progressives in history whenever they think it suits their purpose. Oh, Martin Luther King, I mean, he would have been a Republican. No, of course, yeah, I mean, sure, buddy, of course. Look at the actual history of Martin Luther King. And by the way, what he actually said about Republicans, even though at that time they were just beginning to switch over to being the far right insane party that they wound up developing. He could see that ahead of time. And Jefferson was a radical liberal. He was so radical, he did a revolution against the establishment. You think Jefferson would have been like, oh, draconian plans where that screws over the American people? I kind of love it. Not sure you got the right guy there, buddy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Jimmy Kimmel. Late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel has been incredibly critical of Republicans in the Senate and how they're trying to jam or rush a vote on a replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act. Now, recently, he criticized Senator Bill Cassidy because Bill Cassidy promised him that if he ever co-authored, co-sponsored, or supported any type of legislation replacing Obamacare, it would pass the so-called Jimmy Kimmel test, indicating that everyone would be covered regardless of whether or not they have a pre-existing condition. Well, Jimmy Kimmel realized that because of a lack of cost controls, people with pre-existing conditions under the Republican plan would get charged exorbitant premiums and wouldn't be able to afford their health care. So he criticizes Cassidy. Cassidy hits back at him with this statement. Video A16. Okay, so Cassidy basically criticized him and said that, I'm sorry that Kimmel doesn't understand the bill. Well, Kimmel wasn't gonna let that stand. So he just recently did another monologue where he hit back at Cassidy and said the following. Graphic 3A, please. Oh, I get it. I don't understand because I'm a talk show host, right? Well then, help me out. Which part don't I understand? Is it the part where you cut $243 billion from federal healthcare assistance? Am I not understanding the part where states would be allowed to let insurance companies price you out of coverage for having pre-existing conditions? Which part of that am I not understanding? Or could it be, Senator Cassidy, that the problem is that I do understand and that you got caught with your GO penis out? Is that possible?
Damn.
Because it feels like it is. Man, is Jimmy Kimmel the new woke bae? That was amazing.
Yeah. So, Kimmel's getting a ton of credit for pointing out things that are obvious, and let me join in that credit. Thank God he did, because we have this weird media and political atmosphere in America where you need a comedian to say something for people to pay attention to it. And it's partly because the Democratic Party is not very good at their jobs. They should have been screaming from the hilltops about this. It's also partly because the mainstream media is terrible at their job. Because why are you leaving it to a comedian to say the truth? So why can't CNN say it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions? It doesn't. It doesn't. Why don't they say, hey, you know what? And I know they'll never ever want to do this because, oh my God, then people in power might be upset with them. But to say what Kimmel said, no, that senator is lying. President Trump is lying. All the Republicans who claim that it covers pre-existing condition, that is not true. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Whether you think it should cover pre-existing conditions or not is an opinion. Does it cover it? That's a fact. So that's why Kimmel stands out, because the rest of the media is so bad at their job. So that's why people are like, oh my God, somebody actually said the truth. That's crazy. Is he allowed to say that on TV?
Well, I think what Kimmel does, and I think it's important, is he makes something that could be considered complex, like a policy idea that could be considered complex, accessible to people who aren't necessarily in politics. Like, it seems obvious to us because we live it, we breathe it, it's every day for us. But for a lot of people, especially people who watch those late night shows or are more into like the entertainment world, maybe they were never aware of these things, and having Kimmel kind of break it down the way he does is great. I love that he's doing it. Now, Kimmel was also recently attacked by Brian Kilmeade. Brian Kilmeade made a point on his show about how, the Emmys had such terrible ratings because of the fact that it was highly politicized. Apparently, Kimmel hasn't learned anything from that. Well, Kimmel hit back at Brian Kilmeade as well. Let's take a look at the first video.
All right, Sunday's politically charged Emmys may have been the lowest rated in history, but that's not stopping Hollywood elites like comedian Jimmy Kimmel for pushing their politics on the rest of the country. Watch. Is he actually portraying the Graham Cassidy bill properly last night on his late night show? Joining us now is Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the co-sponsors of that bill. Senator, he went off on you and Senator Cassidy directly.
Okay, so that basically led to Kimmel doing this. Take a look.
And Jimmy Kimmel did not like that introduction to the Graham segment and decides to take a personal attack on me.
And the reason I found this comment to be particularly annoying is because this is a guy, Brian Kilmeade, who whenever I see him, kisses my ass like a little boy meeting Batman. Oh, he's such a fan, follows me on Twitter. He asked me to write a blurb for his book, which I did. He calls my agent looking for projects. He's dying to be a member of the Hollywood elite. The only reason he's not a member of the Hollywood elite is because nobody will hire him to be one. And the reason I'm talking about this is because my son had an open heart surgery and has to have 2 more. And because of that, I learned that there are kids with no insurance in the same situation. I don't get anything out of this, Brian, you phony little creep. Oh, I'll pound you when I see you. That will be my blurb for your next book. Brian Kilmeade is a phony little creep.
Wow.
Man, I give Kilmeade credit for running it on his own show. I'm not, man, you're hurt, dog. I don't know if you know that, but you don't ask him if he's all right.
Oh, and he makes it very clear that he's hurt, right? So yes, okay, sure, give him credit for airing that entire rant by Kimmel. But I think what actually makes Kilmeade look worse was his response to that on his own show. So I want to get right to it. Take a look. He says
for him to go out and attack me personally and try to get into my personality and wants to be a Hollywood celebrity. I was out there for a while. I was doing sports, came back here and after doing sports for 20 years was been at Fox. Why would I ever leave the #1 network in all of cable, not only news, and the #1 morning show in the country through all these consequential events to go out to in Los Angeles and do entertainment? I mean, what point is that? No one will hire him? It's not even based in fact.
Okay, so he is saying he does not want to be part of the Hollywood elite. Yes, he has reached out to Jimmy Kimmel, told him he's a fan, asked him to write the blurb in the book. He confessed to all of that stuff, but does not want to be part of the Hollywood elite, not interested at all. But one thing that he wants to definitely clear up is that he's not little. He explains.
For him to go that crazy and attack me personally, so when I get up in the morning, all of a sudden, instead of just saying Brian Kilmeade asked this question, he's terrible at his job, you have to attack me personally. And I guess this little, you said this little man or something like that, I'm 5'10", 174. I'm sorry that's not good enough for you. But I just think if you look at the average chart of a male in America, I think I'm pretty much on target. And I don't kiss your butt. I think you're good at your job. So if I say nice things, I'm not kissing up to you. So you're in the political fray now, and we'll see what happens from here.
Oof. You know what? I gotta be honest, I almost feel bad for him.
Yeah, no, because no, I don't feel bad for him. Like,
that didn't last long. That was about half a second.
No, yeah, I don't feel bad because everything that he has said that has been so incredibly deplorable just rushed back into my brain, and I have no love for Kilmeade. However, I think that last clip that we just showed you guys perfectly illustrates a point that I've been trying to make, but I don't think I've articulated well. Look, people like Kilmeade, people like some of the guys on the alt-right, their egos are bruised, right? They don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel confident. And they're like they have all this pent up tension. And I mean, like if someone called me, Ann Coulter, for instance, during our debate called me an old Soviet woman, right? I know I'm not old. So when she said it, I just rolled off my back, did not care at all. And I moved on to whatever answer I was giving to the debate question. But I'm not insecure about my age. And so someone calling me old doesn't bother me in the least bit. But with Kilmeade, he heard the word little and he panicked, right? He's like, oh my God, I have to now defend my size, which is ridiculous. Like, why would you even get into that? We're having a debate about healthcare. So anyway, that stood out to me.
Okay, so yeah, and Brian, when he calls you a phony little creep, he's not talking about any part of your body. That's not the point he's trying to make, so you don't have to get into stats about your weight and size and stuff. Anyway, so look, I think Kimmel hit him pretty damn hard with that he's kissing my ass and stuff, and you can tell from Kilman's reaction that it's largely true. I mean, he wasn't like, no, I never complimented. No, I didn't ask for him to sign my book. He did, it's obvious. Not sign, but do the book blurb. You could sense in that. That's why as a lib, for a second, I'm not as harsh as Anna on this one. I still feel bad for the guy because, I mean, Kimmel took a blowtorch to this dude's knee, and he's like hopping around like, that hurt.
But Jake, what is the criticism that we have for Democrats or liberals? The constant criticism.
They're too weak.
They're too weak, right? So Republicans will punch you in the face. And Democrats will sit around or liberals will sit around and have a discussion about whether or not it's okay to do any type of microaggression. No, not microaggression, big aggression, macroaggression, okay? Go after these bad guys, and I'm not talking about physically, okay? I'm talking about going after their ideas in an aggressive manner and not letting up. I think that we give up too easily. And when I say we, I don't mean us specifically, but as an ideology, we will kneel as like the second we're asked to kneel, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that's of course the old Democratic Party, which we can't stand on the show. So look, one last thing that's pro Kilmeade is that he did say, let's be fair, he did say at the end, he said about Kimmel, continue to do a great job and best of luck with your son. That's nice.
That was kind of classy, sure.
Okay, it was classy. Okay, now, back to the essence of the story, which is, look, all this stuff is fun, but the bottom line is who's right. And so Kilmeade's thesis on that is, he said, you know, if you're gonna talk about this stuff, he said, quote, you should know what you're doing, talk to the people that wrote it. And he says, like we do, like they had Lindsey Graham on. No, but that's not the correct way to find out what's in the bill. You're asking a partisan who wrote the bill, and Kimmel's right, the politicians come on your air and lie to you all the time. So I was kidding around on Twitter. I didn't mean it like I'm not going after Kimmel or anything. I was just being a little snarky, saying, you know, do the politicians lie? Of course, like this is not a breaking news event. But to the media, it is. That's why they're like, oh my God, somebody said the politicians lied. Wow, right? So anyway, bless his heart for saying that. And so to Kilmeade, you're wrong. Just having that politician come on and to lie to you and your audience is not at all helpful. In fact, Jimmy Kimmel did have the guy on. He had Cassidy out in the first place. That's how this whole thing got started. And Cassidy lied to his face.
That's right.
And that's why Kimmel went on the rant that he did. And so he's not as familiar with politics, so that he was kind of personally outraged that this guy told me a lie. I can't quite believe that, right? So, and the facts are on Jimmy Kimmel's side. They are cutting healthcare by $243 billion. He didn't even get into this, but by the way, the real reason they're doing it is because they have an even bigger tax cut for the rich inside this bill, which they never talk about. That's the real purpose of this bill. And yes, it does not cover pre-existing conditions. And finally, look, the facts are on his side. And finally, part of the reason that it's working and people are on Kimmel's side is because covering pre-existing conditions is incredibly popular. It's popular throughout the whole country, and it's even popular among Republicans. So when he does the job of the press, what they should be doing, and calling Cassidy the liar that he actually is, and Trump then tweeted, I would not sign Graham Cassidy if it did not include coverage of pre-existing conditions. It does, a great bill, repeal and replace. That's just not true. Yeah. It's another lie. It's a definitive lie. So not only is Kimmel right that they're lying, but he's also right that it's a very popular provision in the country. That's why they're having to lie about it. And it's great that even though he doesn't need it because he's wealthy and could have taken care of his son, it made him empathize with people. He's like, are you kidding me? If you don't have insurance, their kids are gonna die? Isn't that terrible? And yes, most Americans think it's terrible. Fox and Friends doesn't. Lindsey Graham doesn't. Cassidy doesn't. Trump doesn't. Well, then somebody's got to tell people that that's the case. Thank God at least Jimmy Kimmel did it.
Yep. All right, we got to take our first break. Let's do that. And when we come back, white supremacists admit to using the terrorist playbook in order to gain political popularity. That story is explosive. You don't want to miss it. And then later on in the show, my personal fave, Lawrence O'Donnell, losing it.
Oh, no. I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
They're so miserable. All right, I'm gonna stop myself before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that. We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. Dave's is A, and the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story, and it's not funny, but Steve is over too.
It seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for.
We should probably wrap it up.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
He said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. I got a bunch of great messages here. First one's from Ben Peck on YouTube Super Chat. He makes a really good point. He said, important point, if GOP allows insurance to be sold across state lines, after a plan like this is passed, most plans will be sold from states that waive requirements for pre-existing conditions, etc. So that's a double whammy. You allow the states to end the pre-existing condition coverage. And then the thing that the Republicans love is, sell insurance across state lines. It sounds really good. Like, why not? Why not? We should all be able to. What that does is creates a race to the bottom. And so it allows the worst insurance, or the one that covers the least, to be sold everywhere, okay? And so that's likely what's gonna happen. Great point, Ben. Joseph S. tweets in, Cenk the Turk Uyghur is back in the house, TYT, TYT, TYT. Thank you, Joseph, appreciate it, it's very nice. I would have screamed that, but it's about me, so that's the way you wrote it, so it would have been a little much. Hello, it's me, says I just voted for the Young Turks for Streamies Show of the Year. Why, thank you. Hashtag TYT for Streamies, 4 as an FOR, write it out. All you need is that hashtag. You could vote once a day, even a retweet counts. So hashtag TYT for Streamies, that would be awesome if we won Show of the Year. That means the best show on the internet.
Damn.
That's pretty freaking cool. We've been nominated 2 years in a row. Let's win this time, okay? Jess says, Mike Pence, if by saying resonates with all Americans, you mean kills many Americans, you'd be correct, sir. Jordan Hobson says, that's my stupid Senator Bill Cassidy. I'm ashamed, I'm disgusted. Nambia says, I love how, Nambia, that's funny. I love how the GOP went after Kimmel for being a celebrity with an opinion when their president was a celebrity with an opinion.
Yes.
Sorry, t-shirt for Nambia. Okay, that's an excellent point. ShopTYT.com to check out Young Turks merchandise. Anyway, Old Turk says if this bill dies, Jimmy Kimmel will have saved lives. Bless his heart. Remember, the last guy who did this much, made this much of a difference on a bill was actually Jon Stewart, when they were the Republicans that were refusing to give money to first responders that responded to 9/11. And they're the worst. They're unbelievable. Yeah. And Stewart shamed them enough that they flipped and they actually gave the money. Control Left says it terrifies me that 200 years from now, a US politician might invoke a Trump quote as if it were wise. That's funny. G. LaCroix says petition to have Cenk Uyghur interview Jimmy Kimmel on TYT Live. Go for it. I don't know how you do that petition, but God bless, have at it, Hoss. Last time you guys did one, it was for Bernie Sanders, 17,000 people signed it in 24 hours, and he was on the show within 48 hours.
How did I not know about that petition?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
And it had nothing to do with us, you guys did it. Anyway, and finally, Derek Martin says, Kilmeade stood through the entire radio podcast to prove that he's a big boy.
That is such a good point.
I thought about that too, but thank you, I forgot to mention it. What's with the right-wingers and their Napoleon complexes, he asks. Yeah. I don't know, but it is funny. All right, Casper, what's next?
All right. A local paper in Kentucky recently spoke to a white supremacist who's pushing for a new political party referred to the Traditionalist Worker Party. Now, the head of that party is Matthew Heimbach, and he is claiming that, in order to appeal to Americans who might be turned off by white supremacy, maybe we need to take a page out of the book of terrorists and appeal to them in other ways and just kind of hook them through our economic plans or economic ideas. So let me give you the details on what he wants to do. He wants to go to areas where people have less economic opportunities, who might be living in poverty, and push for health clinics, food banks, small businesses. These are all great things. And then once you provide these great things that help pull them out of poverty, well, then you get their support, and the white supremacy just kind of comes with the package. So let me give you his exact quotes. Matthew Heimbach is the leader of the white nationalist Traditionalist Worker Party, and he tells the Herald Leader that he is explicitly modeling his community outreach plans on the ones successfully used in the past by terrorist organizations to win over populations that might otherwise be wary of extremist groups. So the Traditionalist Worker Party is a white rights advocacy group that is anti-capitalist, anti-Semitic, and anti-diversity. The group's ultimate goal is the creation of an all-white ethno-state that people of other races would need a visa to visit. Okay.
Man, they are interesting amalgamation there of like, hey, white people, pride in that power, yes, right wing, but anti-capitalist. Look, so here's the thing. I said on the show about 1 billion times I'm a capitalist, and so I believe in a mixed economy, the one kind that we have here and the kind that we have in Europe. We can debate over what the government should do and what private industry should do, but they should both exist. Okay, but it is funny. So I disagree with every part of his platform: the anti-capitalist side, the anti-Semitic side, and all white ethno-state, etc. But there is an interesting lesson in there. It is that the super right wing, I mean, again, I'm not trying to lump him in with regular Republicans. I'm just saying that you're the extreme of that end of the spectrum is also frustrated with capitalism.
Yeah, of course.
That they're suffering so much that this guy's like, I don't know, let's try the Hamas and Hezbollah thing and IRA too, as he's about to tell you, of like maybe doing something for people. And they're both the extreme right, certainly the extreme left, but also it's an indication of the voters of the right and the voters of the left are onto the fundamental problem, which is that the establishment is not really on your side. And it is true that they have rigged the rules against you. That doesn't mean you should do an all-white ethno-state or take this guy's assistance.
Right, look, I think that his strategy could be successful, and we just finished a terrible election, and the outcome was the one candidate who pretended to care about the economic opportunities of Americans, right? Whereas the other candidate, had a hard time even pretending. So let's hear from Heimbach. He tells the press that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Irish Republican movement, those are the type of terrorist organizations that he is modeling his strategy after, which is incredible. Because also keep in mind that he's a white nationalist. He thinks we need to keep everyone else out. This needs to be an ethnically white country, and that's it. Because the others are terrible. I mean, I like to model myself after the others, especially those terrorist organizations, because they get it. They get it right. But I don't want them in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really weird. I don't want any black or brown people, but Hezbollah, on the other hand, they're pretty bright. What a strange thing. But if you're deeply anti-Semitic, as he obviously is, maybe in some way he feels like, oh, they're anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Semitic, let's make a deal. I don't know, man, but this, in some ways, the state of our economy, not in the numbers of the unemployed, but in how low wages are, have driven people sometimes literally crazy. And so this guy might have been crazy from the get-go, but the fact that he has any kind of traction today is an indication that things are not right in the country.
Absolutely. He says when the system is unable or unwilling to fulfill the needs of the community, the nationalists step up. Future campaigns will emphasize securing a future for our children, advocating for the silent majority, or taking care of those left behind by globalism. Now, he does not plan to emphasize anything regarding white nationalism. He wants to emphasize the messaging regarding the economy and economic opportunities for these people. And again, that's the way that you appeal to them, because everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to live a prosperous life, provide for their families, and not have to struggle or worry about providing. And so if he can appeal to that, I think that he actually has a significantly well thought out strategy. And the thing that concerns me is that since his numbers or his following is so small at the moment, there are people who are keeping an eye on extremists like this who are just kind of like brushing him off and saying, no, this isn't gonna work. People are smart enough to know, what he's really about, and they will reject him. I mean, look at who we just elected. We elected Trump because, again, he was the only candidate, in the general election after the primaries who pretended to care about the economic opportunities of Americans.
Yeah, look, he probably won't have enough money to be able to pull this off, but if he actually set up a health clinic and a food bank, you think poor people are gonna go, no, I don't want your food because I don't agree with your ideology. Some will, and bless their hearts, but if they're hungry, they'll probably take the food. If their kid is sick and he's got a clinic and it actually works, which would be shocking given how stupid he is, but if it worked, people would take it. That's my guess. I mean, look, I don't want this guy to have any oxygen at all, but so that goes to the great irony here. Remember, it's the right wing who said we don't need government. Now he's saying, well, since the government isn't taking care of us white nationalists have to set up things that the government would normally do, take care of healthcare, take care of food for the hungry and small business funds. That should be part of the core mission of the government. And here's a super right winger going, why isn't the government here? Why isn't the government helping us? Okay, then I'm gonna do it. And that is an amazing testament to what's going on in the country.
Absolutely, I mean, look.
And to their failed ideology.
Think about how, this is an extreme example, but I think it also kind of speaks to this topic. Think about how ISIS successfully recruits people who, didn't have terrorist tendencies. They do it because, or they successfully do it because these are people who have been disenfranchised, who have a lack of opportunity. It's people who do feel hostility toward the Western world over drone strikes and losing innocent loved ones. I mean, if you provide any type of service that benefits or betters the life of these individuals, then they're more likely to easily get recruited to your organization or your group or your political party. I'm concerned about this. And there are experts from the Anti-Defamation League that say, don't worry about it, it's not that big of a deal. He doesn't have the resources to pull this off. But again, I think it's a bad idea to brush people off and pretend like they're not a real threat, especially given what happened with Trump.
Yeah, and to be fair to the person from the Anti-Defamation League, she's monitoring them and checking them, and she's not taking it too lightly. But I'm with you, Anna, that we got to be more careful, because I've heard way too many times from people in Washington, no, people love the status quo. It's just not true. So finally. And speaking of being careful, look at what he did. They changed their words to make it more mainstream. And again, this is really interesting and telling, because a candidate that they backed ran with the slogan "Make America White Again," and it didn't work. Only got 2% of the vote. So even in a deeply red area of the country, that message of "Make America White Again" is not at all successful. So he changes to the things that Anna just told you, that he's advocating for the silent majority. That means white people. Richard Nixon used that exact same language. Richard Nixon, like this white nationalist, meant white people. And so this guy's like, oh right, that's why Republicans say silent majority, because it's a wink so that you don't feel racist when you vote for me, but you get that I'm actually only for white people. And then the other code word, those left behind by globalism. Saying I hate Jews is not working as well in the polls because people feel a little uncomfortable with it. Say people left behind by globalism, which is the new word phrase that Steve Bannon came up with for anti-Semitism, and people are like, oh yeah, no, I don't like the Jews running Wall Street, etc. And which is so frustrating because Wall Street is doing so many things wrong, but these guys are misdirecting the anger towards one particular ethnicity. Well, that's not the issue. I've gone over this literally with David Duke in an interview. I listed all the Irish bankers in charge of Wall Street firms and Indian Americans, meaning South Asians, etc. Vikram Pandit is not Jewish, okay? The real issue is that we have allowed private financing of elections and the politicians serve private interests. That's the issue, but it's gotten so bad, people are now looking to white nationalists to end globalism and speak for the silent majority. And when you change the language like that, it does work. That's why Nixon won, and that's why Trump won.
Yep. All right, one more story before we go to break. Since the election of Donald Trump, there has been an increased activity among ICE officials. One tactic that they have really ramped up is going to courthouses and waiting outside to essentially go after people that they believe are undocumented immigrants. Now, this has a number of negative implications, including messing with our justice system and making people feel unsafe or uncomfortable going to the courts when there's an issue. Now, there's also the issue of racial profiling, which was very evident in a story that recently broke featuring ICE officials who approached the wrong Latino man that they thought was an undocumented immigrant. Now, the video that we're about to show you was shot at the Washington County Courthouse in Oregon. It is a disturbing video, but it gives you a sense of what people, American citizens, are currently going through in this country. Take a look.
Do you have a warrant? Are you with ICE? Do you have a warrant for arrest? Do you have any identification? Do you have any identification that you can show them?
So this.
Excuse me, ma'am. Please step back.
Picture right here.
Do you have any identification that you were showing them?
Bitch, please. Bitch, please. That is not my husband.
Do you have no? Do you have?
You are not. You are not.
Who are you?
Who
are you?
You are not part of the court. We do not know you. Please back away from my husband.
Yes.
Please back away from our car before we call the cops.
Yeah.
Before we call the cops. No, you don't need to show anything to this bitch.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agents.
These random
We have
people
3
are
cars.
approaching us
They're
and asking my husband for his identification. We have no idea who any of these people are. We literally just walked out of the courtroom and we're being approached right now. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
This is absolutely ridiculous. We don't know any of these people.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here, you son of a bitch.
This woman asked my husband what his first and last name was, asked him for his ID, showed a mugshot to him, and told him that that was him. It was not even the same picture. Who the hell is she? And then we came out of the courtroom and she followed us.
Okay, so the man that they approached is Isidro Andrade Tafolla, and he is a US citizen. He was not the person that they were looking for. They just approached a guy that they thought looked like the person they were looking for. He did refuse to give the agents his ID, but he did tell them his name. They then took the photo out of this man, showed it to him, and then just refused to believe him when he said, "That's not me, you have the wrong person." This is madness. And by the way, I didn't realize that ICE officials approach you in plain clothes. If that woman in jeans and a green hoodie approached me and my husband asking for identification, I wouldn't take her seriously. I'd be like, I don't know who you are, pause, okay?
Yeah, so there's 2 different issues here. So the ACLU says this is a clear case of racial profiling. I think that depends on the context. So let me explain. If they thought that that guy with the mugshot that they're looking for was in court that day for some reason, then you could make an approach to a person who looks like him and figure out if it's him or not. If they're stalking this courthouse looking for Latinos that are coming out of it, then that's racial profiling and it's crazy. And they assured us, no, this is only for the bad hombres and etc. But when you go around asking random Latinos for their papers, no, that's Gestapo-like stuff. So I would just need more information to figure out which one is which here. And but ICE is not getting back to anybody, so we don't know that there was someone in that courthouse that matches that same exact description.
So what I am clear on is that regardless of your immigration status, even if you are in the country and you are undocumented, you are protected by the US Constitution. You have constitutional rights. That is not something that is my opinion. That is based on precedent set by numerous Supreme Court rulings, okay? So undocumented immigrants have constitutional rights. If you start harassing Latinos as they're walking out of courtrooms, think about what you do to the justice system and think about what you do to the rights of not just undocumented immigrants, but American citizens. You don't want to instill fear in people to the point where they feel uncomfortable going to a courthouse or feel uncomfortable reporting to the authorities if there has been a crime, if they've been the victim of a crime. There's been numerous cases, countless cases of undocumented women who were either abused, beaten up, raped, and they feel like they can't go to the cops because they worry that they're gonna be the ones punished as a result of this. There are protections for those women, by the way. And so if there's now a number of stories making headlines featuring these ICE officials harassing people as they're coming out of courtrooms, that's a huge problem. I think that should be banned, okay?
So that leads me to the second issue at hand, and this one's much clearer. And cops do this from time to time. I literally had this happen to me. It was a long time ago, but sometimes cops will be undercover. That's normal. And if you're infiltrating a gang or whatever, you're going to be undercover. We get that. But when you go to detain someone, you can't just assume that they'll assume you're a cop.
That's right.
How do we know you're a cop? And cops get really offended when you ask them for ID. That's what happened to me. And they did a false arrest on me, which they then had to withdraw. Okay. And it's not illegal to ask for your ID. In fact, it's the most legal thing I could do because otherwise people are gonna get kidnapped when random people come and pretend to be police officers and take them off the streets. But they feel like in this case, and it's not cops, it's ICE, but that they're above the law. Well, that's the kind of lawlessness that's the trouble at hand. So if people have constitutional rights and American citizens and undocumented immigrants definitely do, according to the Supreme Court, well, then you should approach them in a legal way. So if you're looking for a guy, go up in your, or even if you're in undercover for whatever reason, and I don't know the particulars of that case of the guy they were looking for, but when you go up to the guy to detain him, you gotta show him a badge. You gotta, so that they know you're cops, because I don't know if you, first of all, even if he is guilty, that's the right way to do it, that's the legal way to do it. And second of all, you don't always get the right guy, so you might be scaring the hell out of an average citizen, and they don't know if they're about to get put into a van. And if it was the right guy, why are you guys undercover? Why can't you just be ICE and say, hey, I got the bad guy and I'm gonna put him, and I'm gonna detain him? Like, it makes it look like it's go time and you're gonna throw him in the back of a van if it turns out you did get the right guy. Right. And that's not the right procedure either.
Right, I mean, I just, think about yourself in that position where you're approached by those very people that approach this American citizen, okay? Would you, I mean, I think that the situation would probably even escalate if I were involved, because I'd be like, who's this random woman like bothering me? Like, who are you? You're asking me for ID, I don't know who you are, and I'd get angry. And the fact that they kind of kept things under control is pretty miraculous because, again, they refused to answer any questions and they kept insisting that this guy was someone that he wasn't.
By the way, if you missed it, the guy in the ICE vest that showed up, he was the presumably the lead agent, and he said, that's not him, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, and look, if you're the law, you don't have to do things in this weird surreptitious way, and you don't have to throw people in vans, and you don't have to run. If it's just a simple matter of identifying yourself, are you this person? Yes, then you're under arrest. No, then you're not. Sorry to detain you for a minute while we found out. People aren't gonna freak out if you come up to him and go, hey, here's a guy who looks like you, is that you? Oh, it's not you, okay.
Yeah.
But when you go up to him like a rando, like give me your ID, and then you're like come out of a freaking vehicle that was waiting for them, and they're like, what is going on?
Right, exactly.
This is what we're worried about, that all of a sudden it appears like you're doing racial profiling of random people, and you've got this feeling of lawlessness at ICE, because they've done this in the past. We told you about somebody gave a political speech about being undocumented. ICE pulls up after the speech, grabs her, and then whisks her away. What do we have? Like, we're gonna start putting hoods over people's heads, and this is not how.
Don't give them ideas.
I know, right? This is not how a legal society ruled by law should operate.
Exactly. All right, let's take one more break. Wait, do we have to take a break? We do, yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's take one more break. When we come back, the Lawrence O'Donnell piece that I.
Who's doing the hammering? What is going on here? Okay.
So good.
When we come back, we'll do it live.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bae.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bae, not sleep bae.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah, the gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, mother. dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go. There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it so many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. It helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
#WokeBay.
#WokeBay. Please follow me. Please.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Members of the day are Anna Miller and Michael Morgan. Thank you, guys. And today in the post game, if you haven't heard that story of how I got arrested, this is a long time ago, over 20 years ago. I'll tell you guys in the post game. Okay, TYTnetwork.com/join. Now, a couple of quick comments. Kevin Knepp says, white nationalists, we're not terrorists. We just do terrorist things and use terrorist tactics. Zeiss Cube says, I don't understand how a white person can consider himself a nationalist when his ancestry requires immigration from Europe. Fair point. I think probably only the Native Americans get to be real nationalists. Gabby says Republicans have used dog whistles to energize racists for decades. Donald Trump just swapped it for a bullhorn. Yep. And then the Mad Lib finally says, no ID, no uniform, no warrant, and you want to see my papers?
Exactly.
You have the right to go fuck yourself, have a nice day.
Yeah.
And of course, if you do that, then stuff's gonna escalate, and then God knows what happens to you, and then they're gonna say, well, I thought I was under a threat.
Yeah, I know. It's just not the right way to do things. All right, let's have a little bit of fun.
Fun.
All right. Mediaite has published an 8-minute-long video featuring MSNBC host Lawrence O'Donnell losing his patience with his crew. Now, this was leaked, and whoever leaked it is a bad actor. It's not cool. You shouldn't have done it. However, the video was awesome and a lot of fun. And I debated whether or not we should talk about this. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that we should. Because, I mean,
I like that standard. If something is too fun, well, what are we gonna do?
Okay, look, I know that some people might look at this as, oh, it's damaging his reputation. No, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I'll let you judge for yourself. He did apologize for it via Twitter. I'll give you that apology in just a second. But first, let's get to the fun stuff, okay? We have a ton of clips. Let's go to the first one.
What's going on? Why am I losing this? Why don't I have sound? All right, it's back. Someone's pressing buttons and turning my sound off. Who's asking for a Labor Day rundown in my ear?
Okay, all right. Now, look, this is he's not on air, okay? But the cameras are always rolling. And when I was at MSNBC, I was cognizant of this. But you know, you
forget.
No, it's not even that you forget. It's just stuff's going on, right?
Yeah.
And so me, I'd get hungry because I'm running the whole day. So the Young Turks 2 hours, MSNBC an hour. Like, so I'd be eating a banana off air. I was like, can't wait for these tapes to be released one day. I'm like, eating a banana, right? Anyway, so somebody has those tapes somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of feel bad for Lawrence here, and he's genuinely frustrated about things he probably should be frustrated. If you've never had an earpiece in your ear, it is super annoying. Now, of course, you get used to it. Anna's got one right now, and if somebody's constantly talking and you're trying to concentrate, it is grating. So that's my defense of him. And I'm with you, Anna. It's too amusing, and I feel bad. But like when he goes. You're like, oh no.
Oh, it's so good, but it gets better. Okay, so look, understand that when you're doing a live show, and you do a live show with an establishment cable news outlet, like there's so much pressure for everything to be perfect and polished, and you have to be that perfect little robot, right? Just like let loose, I get it, there's something going on with your ear, right? There's some sort of technological issue. Just be honest with your audience and move on with your life. It's not the end of the world, but he's conditioned to like freak out as soon as there's a tech issue. So, all right, that's just the beginning. Let's take a look at the next one.
God damn it.
10 seconds. 5, 4.
Sorry, Lawrence. Sorry, but it is funny. Come on, when you okay. But that's to Anna's point, and that's why this actually is newsworthy. I mean, it's not just to pick on Lawrence, who's obviously having a bad day,
because you had a bad day.
But because TV's so fake, that's why like you go like, oh, and then the TV's on. All right, back on the program here. Right, which is exactly what O'Reilly did. Yeah, it's okay. You can come back on and be frustrated. At the top of this show, Anna told somebody to turn on the monitor here. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know what? The audience found out the monitor wasn't on. Everybody just bring it down, be human for a second.
Yeah,
and in fact, even the anger makes you more human.
Yeah. So okay, I know he loses it, but this didn't make me dislike him. It just showed his human side, and you never see the human side of people, and it just made me appreciate him as a human. Like, it's okay, okay? We all have our meltdowns. It's not the end of the world. Let's take a look at the next one, though.
And tragedy, and into that tragedy today stepped the President of the United States.
23 seconds.
There's insanity in the control room tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna use that line from now on, and we gotta get that on the soundboard. There's insanity in the control room tonight.
Oh, his comments about the control room get better. Next one.
Someone in that control room is out of control.
I want that one on the soundboard too. And I'm gonna use it against you guys in the control room.
Oh man. Okay, so he's lost it. He's really upset. His earpiece still is not functioning properly, and someone tries to help him out. Here's his reaction.
Who had been missing since Sunday morning. You have insanity in my earpiece. Don't leave it there. It's not my earpiece, it's somebody talking on our lines.
10 seconds.
Fucking out of control shit.
Do it on air, it'll be fun. Do it live. We'll do it live.
What does it mean to play us out? That wasn't him, that was Bill O'Reilly. Okay, all right, now there's an issue with construction happening in the building. And Cenk has experienced this, and he has also lost his patience. So it brought back memories for me, made me very nostalgic. Take a look.
Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
I don't know. It's on a different.
Where's the hammer?
It's on a different.
Is it on go up on the other floor? Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering.
I think it's something back there.
I'll go down to the goddamn floor myself and stop it. Keep the goddamn commercial break going. Call fucking Phil Griffin. I don't care who the fuck you have to call. Stop the hammering. Empty out the goddamn control room and find out where this is going on. It's either there or out there somewhere.
It's either north or south or east or west of Tikrit. That's where the weapons of mass destruction, the hammer of mass destruction is. Okay, so you're right, Anna. Almost exactly what happened with me.
Yeah.
So again, Lawrence, we empathize in some ways, man, and so I know he's having a hard time now.
Yeah.
And yes, we're laughing, and everybody is. It's okay. You'll laugh one day too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so now I didn't do it on air, but there was literally drilling in the room above our heads when we were on, I think it was Air America at the time, and we were all doing online video too. But I got on the phone with the landlord and I let it rip.
I've never heard Cenk lose his temper like that. And you guys have seen him lose his temper on the show, so you've heard him get loud, but it was scary. Like it got real quiet in the office.
Okay, and I think, look, on this one, probably the reason it got leaked is because somebody didn't feel good about being yelled at. And they're like, I don't know if you know this, I have the tape. They're probably furiously trying to find who that is right now as we speak. And the issue there was that it at least appeared that he was punching down. And that's the no-no. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Because so when I was yelling at the landlord, I was punching up, right? I wasn't like randomly pick a person in the control room and be like, you some bitch, I'm coming for you. So, and again, over the top, like defensive Lawrence in a sense of that, like he's super frustrated and this thing's constant bomb, 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 bomb in his ear, and nobody's making it stop. And he's like, for some, I'm not making it up. There actually is hammering in my ear. Can someone make it stop? The Phil Griffin that he referred to is my old friend Phil Griffin, who runs MSNBC.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I should have that on the soundboard too. Somebody call fucking Phil Griffin.
All right, I want to skip ahead to the last video, video 15, because it just kind of summarizes all the things that went wrong. Take a look.
I don't know why I bother to say how to cut the slots when you don't do it. I just don't. I don't know why I just. So now I have to chase those stupid goddamn entrails that you allowed him to stick out there. Jesus Christ. Crazy fucking sound coming in my ear, this fucking stupid hammering. I told you why I wanted those fucking words cut. It just fucking sucks. It fucking sucks to be out here with this out of control shit. Any fucking thing can come into my ear at any moment. That's what I know. Anybody can get into my fucking ear at any time. Some woman talking about what we're doing after the show. Fucking guests' faces coming up in the middle of a fucking script.
Dude, like I'm so happy we don't have teleprompters, because you become a slave to that script. Right, you become so conditioned to read from a freaking teleprompter that like you forget how to be a human and just talk about the news like a human being. And by the way, like this is not his fault. That's just the model of television news. That's what they do. That's what you learn when you're in journalism school. You learn how to operate a fucking teleprompter as part of a journalism program, right? Like that is so old school, and it not only disconnects you from the topic that you're talking about, it disconnects you from the audience. Just be a human, it's okay. The script, all right, some woman's face is popping up in your script on the teleprompter. It's fine, you know the story, talk about the story.
Yeah, And so, okay, last couple of things here. First of all, when it's impossible not to laugh when he says that there's all these things coming in my ear.
Oh, come on.
Okay, it reminded me of the Star Trek where the bugs, the alien bugs go inside their ears and then take over their brains. Anyway, but it is a metaphor for overly produced television.
Yes.
Where there are all these different people speaking to you about what you should say, and it's so, well, they think it's well put together, but it's actually overly produced. So we don't, look, all of this is like the fun and games, like I've thrown pens down before, whatever, okay? And you had a bad day, we've all had bad days. In some ways, again, it makes us relate to you and more human, but it's not allowed on TV. And everything has to be perfect, but it's like manicured in a way that's so artificial that we're vomiting the fakeness, and people can't stand it anymore. In fact, when I talk to people on the street about why they watch us when they come up to me, they all say the same thing: real, genuine. And then one of them just said in New York, it made me realize, like in hindsight, how much they're acting on TV.
Right.
And so Lawrence, I know a little bit, and he's a really smart guy and oftentimes fun guy, a really fun guy, right? And he's having a bad day there, but that's why so it's, for me, it's not personal at all. I like him, but that's why I call most of the folks on TV news actors, not news anchors, because somebody's messing with his script, and it gets really frustrating. If you didn't have a script in the first place, that'd be a different scenario.
Right, and that's not to say that he couldn't be a news anchor. Like, I think that he does know the
he knows
the
a
subject.
ton. He's super
he's a smart guy. So I just feel like, look, I don't know what the repercussions would be if he decided, you know what, fuck the script. I'm just gonna do the news, okay, without the script, because I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if there would be consequences for that.
Oh, there are consequences. I was literally in that same seat, so this is really interesting, and we'll talk more about this in the post game too, to give you the fuller story. tytnetwork.com/join to get the post game and become a member. Okay, but real quick. First of all, I remember when I was coming on right after Obama had given a live speech about the Egyptian revolution. And I said, look guys, I'm gonna keep it real with you on what Obama said. And immediately there was coming in my, immediately there was a producer in my earpiece saying, don't keep it real. Because there's a lot of fingers.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you the full story like I said in the post game.
Don't keep it real.
Yeah, literally, that was a literal thing that was said to me. And so, why do they have prompters? One day I said, hey, look, man, I've been doing prompterless back then for 10 years. Well, let me go prompterless. They're like, no. I'm like, why? It wasn't that they wanted it perfectly produced. That was a huge part of the equation. But when you really peeled it back, it was because management reads the scripts ahead of time.
Yeah, they want to control it.
And that's right. And so the reason they have a prompter is so that you don't say anything off message, like against an advertiser, against politicians, that hasn't been pre-vetted. And that's the real problem of television.
Yeah. Real quick, Lawrence O'Donnell did apologize for this. He said a better anchorman and a better person would have had a better reaction to technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
That's a great apology.
It is a great apology. I think it's a great apology. Had he been this crazy tyrant, I think he went a little too far. Like, you're fine, dude. It's fine. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
But it doesn't feel that way. I'm sure he's getting a ton of heat and everybody's making fun of him online. And so, yeah, it's bad. It feels really bad. Like I said, another thing I'll tell you in the postgame. One time, I got my sister in a lot of trouble, and I said, one day we'll laugh about this. She said, we will never laugh about this. And I think that's probably what Lawrence is feeling today.
Right.
But that's not true. One day you will laugh about it.
Yeah. All right, we got to take one more break. When we come back, Brett Ehrlich joins us. But you know what? Actually, before we go to break, I want to tell you guys a little bit more about the Streamies because it's important, okay?
Go.
So, the Young Turks have been nominated for a Streamy. Show of the Year is the category that we've been nominated in. And the only way that we can win is if TYT Army supports us and shows us that you are too strong. Now, you don't have to vote for us if you don't want to, obviously. But if you have a Twitter account and want to support us, you can actually vote for us every single day up until the awards by tweeting the hashtag TYT4Streamies, TYTFOR Streamies. We are also nominated for a show on pop trigger called Murder with Friends. That is the show that is hosted by Grace Baldridge. You guys should definitely vote in favor of that as well if you choose to. And
and for news show of the year as well. So look, I'm going to disagree with Anna a little bit here. Number one, you do have to vote for us. It's mandatory. They just passed a law. I don't know, I saw it in a tweet.
Yeah.
Okay, look, there's not that much time between now and September 26th. In all seriousness, how cool would it be if we won show of the year? That's the thing that you should focus on. Hashtag TYT for Streamies. Because it would annoy our critics and our trolls so much if we were the #1 show on the entire internet.
It's a liberal conspiracy.
Oh my God! But did you see him on election night?
Yeah, that's what would happen, and it would be great.
You know what? I want to tape all of them as kind of like their election night moment. If we win that election,
Yes.
like we're declared the show of the year on the internet, they're gonna be like, "Oh my God, brace for impact." Hashtag TYT for Streamies.
Yes, and by the way, retweets do count, so you can retweet someone that's supporting us. Again, use the hashtag TYT for Streamies to vote for us.
Let's go win and drive right-wingers crazy. All right.
All right.
We'll be right back.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow.
Some of the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Irola.
Let's not so quickly discount Harry Potter fan fiction.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
What ran me away from Christianity was judgment and condemnation.
Assaulting peaceful protesters in North Dakota, crazier than bombing Yemen, crazier than bombing Syria so much they ran out of bombs.
What infuriates me is being around the country and seeing misery, corruption, and injustice everywhere.
This reductive interpretation of what their motives are, what Putin's are, by these amateur experts is just beyond.
We don't kill our journalists, and they do.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
Where's the hammer? Is it on the, go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering.
Maybe Lawrence was looking for a hammer because all they had was nails.
Yep.
But no, wait. Everything looks like a nail. All right, anyway. Brett Ehrlich joins us in this second hour. And I did not get a chance to read your tweets, which I will in the next segment. And I'm also going to tell you when the streamings are aired in the next segment, because Anna and I are presenting at the streamings.
Oh.
Really?
And it's actually an awesome category.
What category are we allowed to know?
No, I'm going to tell you in the next segment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and I'll let you know where you can watch too. #TYT for streamings. Go.
All right, let's do it. Former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez's lawyer says his brain showed signs of a severe case of CTE. So this involves Aaron Hernandez, who you may or may not have known. He was a tight end for the Patriots, and he was convicted of a murder in 2013 and sentenced to life in prison. He was found hanged in his jail cell. According to studies that have been done, CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy has been linked to repeated concussions and involves brain damage, particularly in the frontal region that controls many functions, including judgment, emotion, impulse control, social behavior, and memory. It leads to symptoms like violent mood swings, depression, and other cognitive difficulties. They also presented the actual brain scans, which we can look at. So the darkened areas largely attributed to symptoms and signs and a physical manifestation of the CTE. And so a lot of people are bringing into the discussion whether this led to some of the behavior surrounding the murders, because it has been linked, as it has been said, to mood swings, and also other parts of the discussion are the fact that he has a history of being affiliated with certain groups that participated in violence. And so yeah, the question is CTE behind this?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. It might be related to the murders. It obviously could also be related to suicide, which is what it often leads to. Now, his fiance thinks it was not a suicide, and I was a little skeptical in the beginning because of the timing. So he got convicted for the 2013 murder. He was up on 2 different murder charges, but he was still appealing that. And it was just right after he was acquitted for the second set of murders, actually the earlier murders, a 2012 drive-by shooting of 2 men in Boston. He got acquitted of that, and then we find him, hanging in his cell and an apparent suicide. And I was like, why would he kill himself right after he was acquitted, and he still got an appeal on the other charges? And this guy had a contract for $40 million, so that would give a normal person hope that you could turn your life around. Unlikely he'd make it back into football, but there was just, and he had already made a lot of money before. It just seemed weird that he committed suicide, but it might not be weird if you have CTE, which very often leads to suicide.
So what I found really interesting about this, and I didn't know it in our prior reporting on CTE, a person, at least with the medical procedures that we have now and the medical testing that we have available right now, a person who's suffering from CTE can't get diagnosed until after they've already died. Right. You can only diagnose a person through an autopsy. And so what I'm curious about is, in terms of the prosecution of any individual, when it comes to a trial, usually if there are mental health issues that could have contributed to that alleged crime, those issues come up as part of the defense, whether it's insanity or whatever. And so I'm wondering, this is a real problem, and it's affecting all sorts of athletes, especially football players, people who are involved in mixed martial arts,
Wrestlers too.
Wrestlers, if this kind of stuff comes up over and over again, are they gonna come up with better testing methods to see if people are suffering from this condition, if they're being prosecuted?
There are attempts to find new ways to diagnose it. Dr. Sam Gandy at Mount Sinai in New York is trying to develop he's a more of an Alzheimer's expert and is trying to find new ways to diagnose it while you're still alive. I'd imagine that in some kind of prosecutorial case, since there's such a prevalence of it, for those not familiar with the NFL study, they studied 111 brains of former NFL players, and of those 111, 110 shown signs of CTE. And these are the brains of deceased football players.
So that's obviously over 99% of NFL players, but they also studied college football players and high school football players. College football players, shockingly high, about 75% of their brains had CTE. High school football players, 25%. As a former high school football player, that scares the hell out of me. And by the way, of course, remember that study is of people whose families gave their brains in to study, so it's not perfectly,
It's not a representative sample.
It's not a random or representative sample, but still the numbers are so stark that it is a significant issue. Now, my guess is that Anna's right, that defense lawyers will start bringing this up. No, it's okay, the CTE made him do it. It's not gonna be a great defense, and nor should it be. But I don't know what the right answer is. I love football. I know a lot of people love watching mixed martial arts. I loved watching wrestling when I was a kid. And there's two things at play, and it depends on a case-by-case basis. So you have no idea if the guy who did something violent has CTE or doesn't. But they also do a lot of steroids in all three of those things. And so there's been a number of cases of ex-wrestlers and MMA guys and football players abusing their loved ones, sometimes killing them, etc. And you got a combination of pent up aggression and by the way, you make a living by acting out violently. And now it's better that it's in a controlled area like the NFL, right? And then you've got roids, and then you've got CTE. Boy, that's a bad combo.
Yeah. I never bought the they work in a violent industry and they bring that home. It's just so strange to me because it's not like violent trauma, like people who go to warfare and come back with PTSD. And on the other hand, in other situations, like people who are surgeons don't come home and perform surgery on their family.
And look, like porn can go both directions. That came out weird. Okay, what I mean by that is some people claim, hey, porn makes sexual assault more likely because they get, they see some version of that or whatever. And the other side, in that case, they've done a lot of studies on it. Another side one, which is that no, actually, once they've orgasmed, they don't care at all. It actually makes them less likely to commit sexual assault. But in this case, look, part of the reason I played football is because I was a really aggressive dude. And it allowed me to take out my aggression in that context, which is a good context,
right?
And which was rewarded and etc. Instead of taking it out in the wrong context. And so there's a case to be made that if you do it right, it'll lead to less violence. So I hear you on that. But we have had a lot of violence surrounding these couple of areas. They'll have to study it a lot more to see if it actually is connected to CTE. But Aaron Hernandez's case, absolutely tragic for all the people who died earlier. And now for Hernandez himself too. And in his case, we do know whether it led to his crimes or his suicide. He had a pretty bad case of CTE, and sometimes it does lead to those things.
Yep. All right, we're gonna move on to another story. It's Free Speech Week at Berkeley, which means I will not be going to Berkeley this week. It is a conservative rally that lasts for 4 days starting on Sunday, so plan accordingly. It is coordinated by the alt-right and the idea of free speech. I think we'll talk about what they mean when they say it's Free Speech Week, but already this group has come under some problems that have presented themselves around the planning of the event. They have missed some deadlines. So Berkeley Patriot, the student group, missed deadlines that would have given the university police the time they need to set up security for the week. So missing those deadlines, now their events that were supposed to take place inside are going to have to be shifted outside, which bring with them a whole lot of problems and logistical challenges. Also, no one knows who's actually speaking at this event. Only Milo Yiannopoulos, conservative commentator David Horowitz, and far-right activist Lucian Wintrich have actually confirmed the brand name troll spunk, such as Coulter and Bannon have not publicly confirmed their attendance. It was reported that there was one person who was announced as being part of this whole event, who then came out and said, the inclusion of my name in the list of speakers was done without my knowledge or permission. Murray, who was the speaker, added that he would never attend an event with Yiannopoulos because he is a despicable asshole.
Right, so Charles Murray said that.
And now Charles Murray's not a pleasant guy, first of all. He's mainly known for the idea that race and IQ are related. In other words, and shockingly enough, he thinks that white people are smarter and others are not as smart, especially blacks and Latinos. Wow, what a revolutionary theory. I've never heard that one before. And most other scientists dismiss his claims and think it's pseudoscience. So even that guy thinks Nemo's an asshole.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so this is classic right wing. First of all, they missed the deadline. I don't know if it's because they're incompetent, because they're right wingers, I mean, look at them run the government. They run it right into the ground, right? Or they miss it on purpose so that there's more controversy. And oh my God, we got to go outside where the protesters are more likely to be and cause a mess. Yes, because all they care about is the attention. What brilliant speech are they going to give that's going to change minds at Berkeley, right? They don't care about that. They don't care about the actual speech. They're like, oh, drama.
Of course they don't care about the actual speech. In fact, one of the people who in the past attempted to give a speech at Berkeley and then it was shut down by protesters was Ann Coulter. Now she hasn't confirmed whether or not she's going to go to this event, but she claimed, look at these libs trying to do away with freedom of expression, freedom of speech, as if she genuinely values that, right? But in reality, she doesn't value it. And so I went back and I poured through the internet to see whether or not some of these big name conservatives who keep doing this had anything to say about Chelsea Manning losing her honorary fellowship at Harvard because conservatives wanted to censor Chelsea Manning. Well, Ann Coulter did tweet about that. The only thing she said was, this is the second chance to be a fellow that Chelsea Manning has blown. Oh, that's your commentary?
Oh, clever.
Where's the criticism about Harvard, right? Well, where's the criticism about how this university isn't supporting free speech? Anyway, they're obviously not being genuine when they make those arguments. But look, there's a reason why they keep going to Berkeley. Because they want to remain relevant. And the only way that they remain relevant and remain in the headlines is if we give them the attention that they want. So I get that it's ironic because we're doing a story on it, it's giving them attention. But the reason why I think it's important to cover this is because please don't feed the trolls. Just don't. Please don't feed them. I get it, they're hateful, they say terrible things, but allow that transparency to be out there, right? Allow them to say the hateful things, allow them to share their unpopular ideas, and fight those ideas with your own ideas, right? At the same time, you should host a speaking event or speaking engagement featuring someone who has ideas that you believe in. I will promote that speech, okay?
Well, I'll go further. Here, let's have fun. Next time these clowns want to do like a freedom speech or whatever, and they want to have 4 or 28 conservatives on a campus, just invite me. Same day, me versus all of them. And you know what? You don't even have to protest them. Just come to my speech instead. My guess is that our speech will be larger than all of theirs combined, as usual. Okay, because they're not popular. And so Ben Shapiro went to Berkeley the other day. There was some protests. I wouldn't even bother protesting, and there was no major interruptions. And it was a normal, fine, boring, weirdly wrong right-wing speech. So what, right? And like he did this standard like rah rah, let's give tax cuts to the rich, and people were like, oh, okay, and then they left.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, let them. I know, I get it. Look, the best advice I ever got, and it was advice given to me last year when I think I needed it the most, was don't give people the power to make you angry. And like, look, sometimes people do things and it makes you angry for legitimate reasons. I get that. But in this case, they're purposely doing something to rile students up and make them angry because it does benefit them. It benefits their business model. Don't give them that power.
Right, and if you do get angry, there are certain manifestations of that anger that are useful.
Yeah.
But there are certain manifestations of that anger that give them more power. And the manifestations of anger that give them more power are violent activities. And if you go and you throw, something at someone, or if there's any kind of violence whatsoever, that's exactly what they want. I mean, I saw an amazing interview on a local TV station around Berkeley. I think it was the CW local affiliate, where they showed all the complaints lodged by the Berkeley Patriot, all those things saying like they won't let us speak, they're making it so difficult, and they literally said they're treating us differently than they have treated literally every student group. And then it cuts right to an interview with the administrator who's in charge of receiving all these documents from them to okay the event. And he's like, yeah, we are treating them differently. We're giving them way more leeway and way more extra time than we give everyone else, just because it's such, and they understand exactly what's going on. And they wisely say like, we're not gonna give them the pushback that they're looking for. And at every point we'll respond to their misinformation with all the right kind of information, and it works.
Last couple of fun things. I like that Charles Murray and some of the other right wingers were outraged that they were lied about. The right wing lies all the time about the left wing and about everything else, but when all of a sudden you're doing it to each other, like, shocked and chagrined. Turns out some people on our side are liars. Okay, wow. And then remember, this isn't about free speech, because CPAC had invited Nemo and said, well, I know that he said all these sexist, bigoted, of course they didn't admit that, but it's super obvious he had. And don't make me list a dozen things he said that's outrageous. Anyway, all those things, but we're fine with it. I mean, we're for freedom of speech. And then they found out that he had done that interview where he seemed to be advocating for child molestation and pedophilia. Not that he did it, but that he was saying like, it's not such a bad thing. And then all of a sudden CPAC disinvited him. Wait, I thought you were for free speech.
Right, just because you disagree with that idea doesn't mean that you should censor him, right?
So it's actually not about free speech. They kind of like the bigotry and the sexism and the racism. That's why they wanted him to speak. They don't, to their credit, I guess, they don't like pedophilia. So that's why they didn't want him to speak after they found out. So just admit that you like the racism and the sexism, and don't hide behind freedom of speech as if like that's your shining principle. Like, freedom of speech is awesome. We all have said a million times we're in favor of it and in favor of you speaking. That doesn't mean that what you say is by definition a good thing.
Right.
It just means you're allowed to say it.
And it doesn't mean that people aren't allowed to criticize what you say, right? So that's another thing. As soon as let's say advertisers pull out of their content, they think that's censorship. No, that's advertisers not wanting to be affiliated with your hateful rhetoric. That has nothing to do with you being censored. It's with a business model that makes sense for these particular advertisers.
Right,
so,
and they're wrong. Like, what they say is wrong. A lot of it is hyperbole for the intent of getting a reaction or a rise out of you. They can't really back it up. There's a great thing from Slate. Michelle Goldberg writes that she went to a bunch of events, and this is actually graphic 7. We're gonna skip graphic 6. And she said again and again when she went to these Trump rallies and various demonstrations, she said, people told me how much they resented not being able to speak their minds, though none of them wanted to articulate what exactly they were holding in. They had hated being shamed on social media, though they usually didn't want to say what they had been shamed for. And a lot of this is like, they don't like being told that they can't say anything, but they really don't want you to know what they want to say because they know how terrible it is. And if you let them actually voice that opinion, they know that the rejoinder is going to be, revelatory of exactly how terrible they are.
It's a wonderful country. You're allowed to be a racist, but we don't have to like you for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, finally, super last thing. One of the right wingers who's not coming is Michael Malice. So they are going to have an absence of malice.
That's funny.
So great. All right, so yeah, we gotta take a break before we move on to the other stories.
Okay, as you all know from a previous old school that Brett and I did together, Absence of Malice was the very first movie I saw in America.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God.
Still looking for Malice, and I'm not gonna find him at Berkeley either. Okay, we'll be right back.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Love you.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, my VCR keeps flashing 12, but it's not even midnight. Go.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
Tragedy, and into that tragedy today stepped the President of the United States. There's insanity in the control room tonight.
Okay, that music leading in actually put me in such a holiday spirit. It felt a little Christmassy, and I'm so fat. I literally wanted to.
Good turn.
I literally, even though it was like I had the Lawrence O'Donnell thing, you know what I thought? I want to eat Christmas cookies and milk right now.
What are your favorite Christmas cookies? Like the ones that are candy cane gingerbread or something?
No.
No, not a gingerbread man?
No, I feel that's slightly un-American. It feels weirdly socialist Northern European to me. No, the ones with the red and green sprinkles on them. The sugar cookies with the
sugar cookies. That's the answer.
But
that's America right there.
Those are good.
Oh, I got to tell you guys Uber stories too. I don't know if we could all fit it into one post game, but I have great Uber stories from my trip. We'll do a long post game. TYTnetwork.com/join to become a member. You're gonna love it. Trust me. Some of them are bananas. I can't wait to tell you guys. All right. Anyway, Peter Hamby wrote in on YouTube Super Chat. There are people who can't work due to their pre-existing conditions, and the Graham-Cassidy bill will empty their accounts. The GOP doesn't care about the weak and the poor. We voted liars to DC. That is unfortunately true. Clever name here says, on Twitter, I wonder what the rate of CT is on other sports like hockey. Lisa Mojica says, I coached youth soccer and refused to teach the little ones how to execute headers. This was back in 1988. Wow, Lisa with some good foresight there. Okay, and then I told you guys that I was gonna tell you where you could watch the streamies. On Tuesday night at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, it's gonna be at streamies.twitter.com. Because I want you guys to watch. It's fun, and we're up for show of the year, and that'll be really exciting. #TYT for Streamies so that we could win. But Anna and I are also going to present the Storyteller of the Year. And yes, and the people in that category are Amanda Cerny, DJ Khaled, King Bach, Lele Pons, and Logan Paul. That's some serious folks.
I feel like King Batch was on our show once.
King Batch was. I always call him Bach. I better get that right before I have a Steve Harvey moment.
Yeah, right. and the actual pronunciation of DJ Khaled's name is DJ Khaled, because it's like at the beginning of every song he's ever been on.
Yes.
He doesn't. You have to shout it.
You need more of a gap between the D and the J, though.
DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
And then because you don't see him on the songs, but he announces his presence with authority.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's the key to pronouncing it right. Reference to his
musical. Music comes in all kinds of keys. B flat.
Okay, I'm both fat and old. All right, let's move on.
All right, let's get into Melania.
That's what he said.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow.
I didn't even mean that at all. I swear. Okay. That's terrible. That was so terrible. All right, let's get on this. So
that's what.
Oh God. Okay. All right, there's so many other jokes to make about this story that should not be one of them. Melania Trump hates bullies, no matter how ironic that may sound. She spoke to the UN on Wednesday, outlining her priorities when it comes to making the world a better place. Folks heard this part of her speech and took issue about how tone deaf it came off. Take a listen.
It remains our generation's moral imperative to take responsibility for what our children learn. We must turn our focus right now to the message and content they are exposed to on a daily basis through social media, the bullying, the experience online and in person, and the growing global epidemic of drug addiction and drug overdose.
So you heard that she thinks bullying is bad and we need to watch what kind of example we set over social media. This, of course, on the heels of literally years of her husband absolutely bullying people on social media. The latest of which was this tweet, this retweeted GIF of him hitting a golf ball and Hillary Clinton getting hit by it.
So, and that's.
It loops twice.
Violence against women is so funny. Yeah. And by the way, the tweet also had #CrookedHillary. So look, that was 3 days ago, but you could pick 1,000 examples when it comes to Donald Trump, and well before he became president. Rosie O'Donnell's a pig, and on and on. And not just women, he attacks everybody. To be fair to him, he's a dick to everyone.
Going after a beauty pageant contestant because he thinks that she's gained too much weight, making fun of a reporter who has a disability. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Like, that is his MO. That is what Trump does.
Right.
He called Hillary Clinton Crooked Hillary throughout the campaign. He called Ted Cruz Lion Ted.
Called Marco Rubio.
Little Marco.
Oh yeah, Little Marco.
No, I called him boy.
Oh, you called him boy.
Well, that's the thing is his tactic is always an emotional attack on self-esteem. That's what it is. He wants to hurt your self-esteem. And yes, these are big politicians who should have a healthy self-esteem, but it's the example that Melania is talking about of setting an example, and that example is to go after people where they may feel self-conscious, and that's what bullies do. And yes, there he goes after politicians, and you can't come back at me with, okay, there's a bunch of politicians, so it isn't punching down, but every other example is exactly him punching down. And now that he is the president, most of the people that he's punching are down.
So
almost everybody, right? By definition, he's the commander in chief.
Right, exactly. Look, I get that it comes off as incredibly ironic, but look, she's got firsthand experience of what it's like to be married to a bully. So maybe that's the reason why she chose this as the topic that she champions, throughout.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you know what? She might have meant this as a message to Trump, and she thought, well, since this is an important speech, Fox News might cover it, so Trump might finally listen to me.
Maybe.
It's only ironic if she loves her husband.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it doesn't really
appear
that she
If she thinks of him a bully, it's not ironic at all.
Right. And also, as I watch that, like part of me really feels for her because she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to give that speech. She doesn't want to be in the public eye. I happen to know someone who used to be her hairstylist, and he had told me that she's one of these people who just wants to be as private as possible. And so now she's like forced to be in the public eye when all she wanted was a sugar daddy. You know what I mean? Like, kind of sucks. Sugar daddy's president now. Now you got to give these speeches that you probably don't really care about. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I think that she's doing this because she doesn't want herself or her son, the younger Trump kid, to be bullied, and that's super understandable. And she gets, so put the kid aside, everybody agrees that don't talk about the kid. For her, I mean, I don't know, you wanted to marry Donald Trump and you thought that was a great idea, so sad day for you. So there, I don't have much sympathy. I'm not saying go bully her, I don't know what it would even mean to bully her, but if you're gonna get criticized for being on Team Trump, that's not really bullying, that's just the consequence of your decisions.
Also, real quick, I've read some articles from people on the left criticizing her outfits, and it's not just about the way the outfits look, it's more about how much they cost. Like that dress that she's wearing there is a $3,000 dress. And so, look, if you think that that's the kind of stuff that will switch voters' minds in regard to the Trump administration, you're wrong. I mean, they flaunted their wealth their entire lives. They continue to flaunt their wealth. The voters don't care about how wealthy Trump is. In fact, they think the more wealthy he is, the more successful he is, and the better the country will be as a result of that. Like, it's just needless. Like, I don't care about what she's wearing, and I don't care how much it costs. Like, let's move on with our lives.
Unlike Mnuchin's wife, she's not rubbing it in people's faces.
Right.
That's a huge difference. She just wears a $3,000 dress because she can, and that was the whole point of her marriage. She's like, if I don't get this out of it, I don't know what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that bullying? Did I bully her? Come on, you married Trump. Get real. Anyway.
It was just so awkward to watch that.
Yeah.
Because you see the tweets that people are like sending out in response, and you think to yourself, all right, it can't be that bad and that on the nose. What's crazy is how on the nose it absolutely was. And there's just one tweet that I want to show. It's the tweet number 10. That's just, the irony would be funny if it wasn't so damn infuriating. Like, that's it. And that's the same response a lot of people had to seeing Sean Spicer come out. It's just like, I don't know if the comedy jokes approach, calling out the ridiculousness of it, while it seems the only intuitive response for me to have, I don't know what is the right answer other than just to say, like, straight up, like, he's a bully.
Yeah.
Well, look, guys, I mean, all right, we got to stop talking about it. She's not that bright. And by the way, none of her handlers and none of his handlers are that bright. Who writes a speech about online bullying and doesn't think, oh, right, if you asked anyone in the country who's the biggest online bully, they would answer Donald Trump, right? Maybe some percentage of right-wingers wouldn't, but even they might, right? And who reads that speech and goes, nailed it, that's such a good idea. It's like,
hey, they're good ideas. Those are good ideas in her speech, but it's not a good idea to have that speech.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if she's criticizing people who are pretending to be really rich when they're not, with orange hair. Like somebody be like, wait a minute.
Right.
Like, wait, that's your husband, right?
Did you really say that?
And so this is the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And no one was bright enough to go, let's just tweak the language because it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we're going to turn our attention to St. Louis. A St. Louis pizza owner was tear gassed during protests by the police, and he wants the police chief to be fired. This is part of a growing movement to displace and get rid of the temporary police chief in St. Louis. What's the story of the pizzeria owner? Well, his name's Chris Summers, and he's the owner of Pie Pizzeria. And he said that his place a few nights ago was tear gassed by police officers who didn't really need to tear gas anyone by his account. It was escalating a situation that wasn't going to escalate otherwise. The police were acting inappropriately. Following that, the police union and a Blue Lives Matter movement posted on Facebook a call to action for a bunch of folks out there to actually go and call the pizzeria up and essentially harass them and tie up their phone lines in the meantime. That's what happened. The actual quote, Summers wrote that he was in his restaurant Tuesday evening when police began firing tear gas and non-lethal weapons. There being no protesters around at the time, Summers wrote, as officers continued to shoot, I lost my expletive and screamed at them for terrorizing our guests, calling O'Toole, who is the interim police chief, a leader of the corruption and incompetence in the SLMPD. The pizzeria owner called on the city's mayor to immediately fire the interim police officer. Another business owner in the neighborhood who owns a bookstore says we need a radically different type of policing in St. Louis, and O'Toole is not the person for that. O'Toole is very old school with respect to the St. Louis police and the extremely white and organized police union. He's part of that. So there you go.
Yeah, and they're saying extremely white, and I don't know the race of the person who said that, because meaning that it's not representative of the community. There's nothing wrong with being extremely white. Okay, just they're saying that this is not a police force that's from this community and represents this community. And you can tell when the cops cleared out the protesters on Sunday night when they started chanting, "Whose streets are streets?" Well, no, you're working for the citizens. That's their streets and they pay your salary. But they clearly in that chant show you that that's not their attitude. That's not their frame of mind. Their frame of mind is us versus them. Mm-hmm. The citizens are the bad guys, and now we took the streets away from them. Remember, you're supposed to be policing the community on behalf of the community. Right?
Yeah, and I'm really happy that the restaurant owners are speaking out. Some of them are doing so without disclosing their identity because they're worried of retaliation. But the fact that these restaurant owners are now coming out and saying, no, this interim police chief is a problem. We saw police officers acting in a way that escalated the situation. They were using non-lethal weapons excessively, even when there weren't protesters, in the vicinity at that time. And so, look, we always get the two sides, and it's the side of the protesters, the side of the cops. The cops usually have a way of dominating the headlines and making it appear to be, a number of violent vandals who are throwing bricks through windows and this and that. And it's interesting to hear from those actual business owners who are saying, no, the problem here is the way that the policing is going down. We need better leadership there.
Yeah, and part of the reason why this is making news is because, unfortunately, business leaders have more of a voice that the media respects than the average citizen. So when business leaders are like, hey, this is not helping this area, people are like, whoa, wait a minute, this affects money. Okay, so we should take this seriously. And that's what's happening here. But the person on the ground that I'm super proud of that has led a lot of these protests is Cori Bush. Cori Bush is actually a Justice Democrat. She's running for office, and it's not an accident. Part of the reason the Justice Democrats picked her is because she has been leading protests and a leader in the community all throughout. So I'm gonna go to graphic 15 first. Right in the beginning, Cori Bush, when they started doing the protests in the first place, said when she heard the verdict that was the cause of these protests, she said, I actually cried, and not because I didn't expect to hear that, but because it was a confirmation that we don't care about you at all. It's like, see, I told you we don't care about you, and we don't have to. Now, of course, the reason that people were so outraged is because the African American in that case was shot, and he had no DNA on the gun, and the cop did have DNA on the gun. He paused, fired the last kill shot. And he said, I'm gonna go kill the guy beforehand, and he still was acquitted. Okay, so it was a particularly egregious case, and Cori Bush then led a silent protest. So just to make a point, which is such a great idea, like they keep saying we're chanting the wrong things, they keep saying that we're violent, etc. You know what we're gonna do? All right, fine, we'll have a completely silent protest. 12 people, lines of 12 people locked arms protesting throughout the streets, and she said at the end of that protest, the purpose of this action was to let people know that our presence is powerful. This was power walking down the street. And she said, we're not afraid of being arrested. We're not afraid of being talked about. We're not afraid to do whatever it takes to say to them, you will stop killing us. That's powerful. So thanks to Cori Bush for doing that. I love that. She was actually the very first candidate for Justice Democrats.
Really?
Yes, and she's running an election. And if you've got real powerful community leaders who are on your side, you should be on their side. Go back her, because she was there from day one. So God bless the business leaders and the community leaders who are fighting back to make sure your voice is represented. All right, guys, we got to go. We do have a little bit more for you guys on tytnetwork.com as the show continues in a second. For the serious audience, we love you. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, we're back. Cenk, Brett, and Anna with you guys here. What's next, Brett?
Biodome, favorite story. It makes me happy. After 8 months in a essential biodome, 6 people from NASA face an even more perilous landscape, planet Earth. They were in a biodome. We have photos of it. This is I know it's not officially called a biodome, and that's like a ridiculous movie from the 90s, but it's a biodome. And it's in Hawaii. They've been in there for 8 months. They can walk outside, but they have to wear like mock space suits to do so. And they came out of the biodome and they have to face reality. And my favorite are the tweet responses with people like Alistair Coote, who say, how long until they ask to be let back in?
Right.
And then David Sims, who writes, who wants to tell them? Because they went in on the 19th of January, and they're just coming out today. Oh my God, so many questions for them on like how this experience must be.
Right, so they've had some communication with the outside world. They've gotten some news, so it's not like they've been completely cut off from knowing what's been going on. But it's been incredibly difficult. Like they get screenshots of news stories, and it's very limited. So there's like a lot of like torture, like mental torture that we've gone through that they haven't had to deal with.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm curious to see like where their happiness level is compared to the rest of the US population.
Right, but how much nicer it must be to be locked in a room.
and not exposed to the outside world.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were trying to the best of their ability, replicate what it would be like to be on this very long space mission. And that's why if they asked for something, they would get it, but 20 minutes later. They couldn't use links because there's no internet, etc. But they would get like snapshots of the news and not much depth. So it's not like they didn't know the hurricanes weren't here, including Trump. But remember, January 19th is the day before inauguration. So they don't even know how big Trump's crowd sizes were.
Oh my God.
So, oh my God, if they knew how gigantic they were, so like weird. His hands.
Trump doesn't even know how big his crowd size is.
He knows, it's not right. Just the idea that they didn't have Google, but they had like access to Wikipedia current events, and they could only access information if it was like tangentially related to the actual mission that they were on, which is cosplaying scenes from the movie The Martian. And like the way they must have been like, all right, how can I find a way to shoehorn my curiosities into like a mission related thing? So for a hurricane, it's like, well, then we have to go to the National Weather Service to study weather patterns on Earth. But I don't know, just the logistics of being away from everyone for 8 months. Like you have a lot of faith in auto pay.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like what do you do? If you have a cat or a dog, like that cat, the dog, you just give it to someone. I mean, it'll be fine. I'm just saying, like, you have to like think everything through, all these logistics. And then the one guy whose last name is Ehrlich, good for him. Way more accomplished Ehrlich than this one, even though he just locked himself in a room. He had a girlfriend. He was away from for 8 months, not a wife, a girlfriend.
There's no way he didn't sign up because of that.
I'm sure that's not why.
I'm also sure she cheated on him. So.
How are you sure? That is defamatory.
That is. I don't know her, so it's not like explicitly defamatory.
Could you imagine if she cheated on him with another Ehrlich and that's why you knew?
Different spelling.
Anyway, John Iadarola would have loved this. You know, this is his like dream.
Isn't he on a similar mission?
But he is.
Right now?
He is. That's right. And so anyway. It would have been better if they couldn't get any news.
Yes.
Right. And if they had gone in before the election.
Yes.
If they came out and people like Donald Trump is the president, they'd be like, no.
Like imagine that. Like it must be like a Truman Show style ruse where they just like orchestrate an entire false reality. They must have been like, there's no way.
Yeah, they're like, look, at least the practical joke should have been better. Like Trump's president, no
right? A
way.
little on the nose, guys.
Wow.
Okay.
I would have loved if that happened and we could like see their reaction.
Like film, like okay, he won, and then he did this, and then this, and then this, and have them go, no. They see because they didn't get the brace for impact. they would just get hit with impact right away. But you know, but finally. In some sense, though, since they went in January 19th, they just came out now. Sure, there was all the tweets and the nonsense and the insanity and the threats and all this stuff and Charlottesville and stuff. That's all true. On the other hand, there's literally nothing that's gotten done since they went into the Biodome.
Right.
He didn't pass a single bill. Like he's done a bunch of executive orders, some of which his own government is ignoring.
Yeah.
The courts have blocked some of them, and the generals are like, no, we're not going to kick out the transgender people from the military. We're just going to kind of ignore his orders. So nothing really has happened. That's the ironic part.
There have been things. Maybe not legislatively, but the travel ban, for the most part, is now in effect. Right? ICE has been a lot more aggressive and is going after more and more people, and they have more of their, immigration checkpoints and things like that. Yeah, there's been some bad stuff. Someone got murdered in a hate rally.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but they already know about ICE because when they were coming out, ICE was the first to greet them. They thought they were illegal aliens.
Right. Papers, please. Papers, please. Nice tent. My God. All right. Do you guys want to do any more? Or is that good?
The next story is kind of a downer. I don't know. It's up to you guys.
It's a downer. You want to do the down? You want to do that story or the one about how people don't know anything in America?
Let's save. I don't. It's up to you guys.
Save
I would save that one for tomorrow and do our awesome post game show that we have.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, awesome post game show. All right, well let's do that. All right, that makes sense. Quite right. Brilliant. So I do have a lot of freaking stories for you guys. The Uber stories are great. You're gonna love them. And then when I got arrested or when my sister hated me. There's all these wonderful things. TYTnetwork.com/join. Bye bye.